I think that's even more acute today, and it's not a bad thing. It's just the competitive side of me is like, how do I figure this out? Like, what do you got to do?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
What's up, Adam? How are you?
I'm great, dude. I love that you have your guitar. That's awesome.
I didn't know if you know how it goes with Zoom. Sometimes it takes a minute to get in. And
Yeah, we're just gonna start writing a song together. Did you know that?
wow, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Kidding.
Tell me about your life trauma. I'm ready.
Oh man. How much time do you have?
I got about like 45 minutes.
Okay, no, I was just but I meant about my life trauma. I was kidding. But that's good to know
No,
as well.
I didn't know if you were going along with it. I was like, damn, he seems pretty serious. Okay.
No, man. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you again so much.
Yeah, sorry. I was in my last time. It was just a mix up on the schedule. So
Oh, no. No need to apologize. It's all good. It's all good. This podcast is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new record you have coming out, and obviously the latest song that just came out as well.
awesome. I'm excited to be here, man.
Awesome. So talk to me. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Michigan, but I was raised in Louisville, Kentucky. My dad works for General Motors, so we moved around a lot growing up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we were in Motor City, and then so I was like 2 years old. My parents relocated to Louisville, and I was there till I was about like 17. So,
Okay. Obviously,
now
most of your life in Louisville.
yeah, some people call it the Midwest. You're right there on the Ohio River, so people who aren't familiar with Kentucky will call it the South, but they got the Southern hospitality there for sure.
Nice. What was it like growing up there? Was it a small town, big town? I mean, Louisville, I would imagine is pretty big.
Louisville's a pretty big town.
Yeah.
I mean, my life was like very, I wouldn't say controlled, but I have four sisters and two brothers. My mom homeschooled all of us. Obviously,
Wow.
I'm the middle child, so it was like five of us really core growing up, like all super close. And then we would be heavy into church, man. Like that was pretty much weekends for me was Saturday, Sunday church, and then occasionally like a Wednesday co-op with church or like kids you would hang out with. But the main thing I would do is like cycling. So Louisville is so beautiful, man, in terms of parks. I have this one park called Cherokee Park and Iroquois Park. I would ride my bike at all the time.
Oh,
Yeah, so that was really like me growing up. I spent most of my time in nature. I was talking to my friend the other day. I was like, man, like it took a long time for me to get the social aspect down when I moved out here because I realized like growing up, I just spent so much time alone.
mhm.
Like, but yeah, it's a great place to do that.
Are you in LA now?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Are you?
I'm from San Diego, but I moved to Nashville area. So
Oh, sweet.
I swapped with you. Yeah, or south of Nashville.
Okay, I love Nashville, man. Cool town.
Yeah. So that's
The Uber
okay.
drivers there will like ask you a million questions. Like they'll drop you off where you're going and like ask who's inside the place and stuff. It's crazy. Like,
That's funny. Was
yeah.
it similar to in Louisville though? I mean,
I never
it's
Ubered there.
well, I guess Uber, but I mean, like, it's so close, right? I mean, we're not that far from Kentucky.
I think it is a little different. Like to be
Okay.
honest with you. Yeah.
All right.
I would say Nashville is definitely more of like, well, I can't speak on it now, but the times I've been, it's like a lot more similar crowd. Like Louisville's pretty diverse.
Okay.
There's a lot of different people that like come from there and end up being there. So yeah.
Rad. All right. Well,
Yeah.
you said you grew up in church, weekends in church. Was that something were you in the church, gospel band or, I mean, like worship group or anything like that?
I started singing in a choir. Like, so the church I went to was called Southeast Christian. It was actually this fucking massive church, dude. Like fit 10,000 people church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then for a little bit, we went to a smaller one. But one of my best friends growing up, he had this youth group that I would go. It was just like, I was like 14. It was a great way to meet girls type thing.
Sure.
And we would go together on like Wednesday nights, I want to say, or Thursday nights. And they offered like choir. And so I started doing that. Just didn't even really think about it. I always loved music. And I really fell in love with singing. I was like, I don't know if I was like 12, 13, it was like middle school.
Mhm.
And that became like a pretty big passion. So then I became more serious about like when I was at church, like trying to get in touch with the musicians and hanging out with them. Yeah. And then I picked up guitar and it was always like, I knew I loved it, but it was on the back burner because athletics got pretty serious at the same time. Like when I was 16,
Oh, what sport did you play?
I was a cyclist.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, you said that, but you did it as a sport.
Yeah, since I was homeschooled, like we didn't really couldn't
Oh.
like play ball and stick sports, right? So cycling like is an individual sport, or you can have like a team that's a club, like because no schools really do it. Um,
Hmm.
and like I got pretty good at it like when I was like 15, and then when I was 16, I got like really good, and I was competing all over the country. And then I got picked up by the national team, and that took me over to Europe, like when I was like 16 years old.
Wow, like Tour de France type cycling, or like what,
Similar,
like
it's called cyclocross.
distance?
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's road cycling, and I did that until I was about 16. But then the one I specialized was called cyclocross. It's like a
Okay.
mix of road and mountain bike, if you could like imagine that. So
Oh
you're on like a
wow.
road bike, but with knobby tires. But I do have
No
friends that
way.
have done like the tour and stuff. So that's
That's
definitely
crazy. I
yeah.
had a roommate in college that was way into cycling, and he went from, I live in San Diego. He went all the way down to the Mexican border,
Well,
and then he went from the border all the way up to Canada.
people do that, man. There's like an actual route that it's pretty
Yeah.
wild. Yeah.
I
It's
was like, dude, I'm like, yeah, that was when like he's like, okay, like our lease was ending, and he's like, all right, I'm just gonna do this bike thing. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's insane. He would ride like 100 miles every week or every weekend.
yeah. It's like
Like
it's
it's insane. Where you so imagine you do similar rides like that.
Yeah, distance wise, like that would definitely be there's like two parts to the season. Like that's called base training. So before you're racing, you'll do, yeah, weekends will be 80, 100 miles. Like so you spend like 5, 6 hours on the bike. And then when you're in the season, you're racing every weekend. So it's like you build up this big base of like cardio, and you really have your legs under you, and you try and maintain it after that. So you won't do too many huge rides, but yeah, it's like the coaching with it is pretty uh like detailed, like
Yeah,
it's all
you gotta
about
be really
physiology.
disciplined.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. I like I said, like so when I came out to LA, I feel like I mean I was homeschooled. I wouldn't say I was socially awkward, but like sports, like I definitely just had a different life growing up. It was so one track, like this is what I'm gonna do. And man, I didn't have a sip of alcohol until like I came out here. Like I was so focused on what I wanted to do, and that was cycling. And it kind of ended pretty abruptly, but yeah, man, it was a great way to grow up. I don't really have any regrets really with any of the sports. Like it was such a cool way to see the world, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you were touring essentially doing that before
yeah.
you're touring as a musician. That's crazy.
And like with touring, what's tough is like I've done on a few tours, you really don't get to see where you're going, right? Like you get to
Right.
the place, you play the show, you go out, it's like already late, go to sleep, you wake up, you drive to the next place. Like with cycling, it was cool because I'd be in play like one place for months at a time, like pretty much the entirety of the winter. So like I'd be based with like a host family, and you mean you got to train out there, so you get to know. I always say cycling is like the best speed to get to know somewhere, because cars are too fast, walking's too slow. But when you're on a bike, you really get to like see things, and
Yeah,
it
you
was,
get to really observe where you're at.
yeah, it was a great time, bro. Your skin is popping. You either got some type of light. You look amazing.
I appreciate that. I do have a light here and a little one up there, but thank you. I'm old too. That makes me feel good. I appreciate
Great.
that. Well, so when you get to LA, actually, I'm curious real quick. So you started singing and like you said playing guitar around this like 14 years
I,
old,
I
13,
picked up the
14.
guitar a little later on, but yes,
Okay.
I started singing like 14. I picked up the guitar, I'd say like 15, 16. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
And
knew
was it
like three chords type thing. I wasn't really good at it. Didn't take it.
right? But were you playing to like, accompany your voice, or you're playing to write songs? Like, how did it start?
To be completely transparent with you, I was like a diehard fan of Justin Bieber. And like
Okay.
yeah, like most of the performances he was doing at a time, that was really when he was just taking off, was like radio shows with just an acoustic guitar, or like intimate acoustic shows. And I was like, damn, like every guy my age hated the hell out of this kid. And I was like, this guy's amazing, man. His voice is
Right.
so good. And I really like felt connected to his songs for some reason. And so I picked up a guitar because I wanted to learn how to play those songs. I mean, I always joke around, like coming from the upbringing I do, I really am not well versed in the history of music. Like I get really insecure about this actually, because I feel like when artists out here get asked like what their idols are, they could name you like the entirety of the 70s and 60s, and like that. I don't have that, like I'm really
Hmm.
getting to that now. But like growing up, I listened to the Christian radio station, and
Hmm.
I occasionally got to turn on the hits, so that was like Coldplay, like all the stuff that was hot when I was growing up is what I was listening to. So yeah, I really just grew up trying to learn how to play those songs, and yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah. But when did you? So that's cool though. I mean, that's awesome that you were like, yeah, everyone hated on Justin Bieber, but I'm like that guy.
He's the truth, man.
People were obviously resonating with what he was doing. He was like the biggest thing. He still is. I mean, like
Yeah.
the biggest thing on the planet.
If I ever meet the dude, I'm gonna tell him. There was like actually like the first talent show I ever did. I'm pretty sure I played one time, or his song "One Less Lonely Girl." I definitely played for
Did
sure.
you really?
Yeah,
When did you do that?
I think I
You
was
did a
like,
talent show though, even when you were homeschooled.
yeah. So we found one like that was part of just like the city. It was like actually tied to like this country club type thing. I was getting creative with it because I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't know. I was uber confident growing up. Like when I look back and look at videos, I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing, dude? Gosh, but we found ways to get some performances in, and like I started playing a couple weddings, stuff like that. It was like never shows, but just places I could hop onto a stage.
Mhm.
It was,
When did you get like some validation that you were pretty good at it? Like, was your family supportive, or like your brothers and sisters were like, "Oh,
some
you're
of
really good at this," or were they like, "Oh
them.
man," like making fun of you? I mean, I don't know.
My older sisters were really supportive. My older
Okay.
brother, he just wanted me to shut the hell up. We shared the same room. We shared the same room, and like you know how it is when you catch like that I won't like the fever for something new. It's just you want to do it all the time.
Right.
But when I like fell in love with music, it was kind of my therapy for athletics. It was like my off
Mhm.
time. I'm just playing music. Um, I was like I would say 16, 17. I started getting a bit older. I was spending more time in Europe. At that time, my parents located to Northern California. So like my off time would be there, and I met some new friends. And my older sister was like, she's the one who kind of really got me into music outside of the church because she was actually in like the worship team, and she played keys and she sang. And we wrote my first song together, and she's like, this isn't half bad. Like, you really are passionate about this. Like, you take the same drive from athletics, we can make it. And it was just at the time that my parents had located to Northern California. And before like being in Louisville, the reason I did athletics is like when I was growing up there, it's weird. It's going to be kind of a long answer, but sorry.
No, this is what I love. I want to hear the long answer. I don't need the cliff notes. I want the whole thing.
When I grew up in Louisville, I felt kind of trapped there. It was like people I grew up with. I mean, I'm 25 now. They're already married and have children. And
Hmm.
so that was like kind of you grow up there, you go to school, you get a good job, you get married, you have kids. And to me, that was like a really scary feeling, the idea of just living your whole life where you come from. And so with music, I didn't ever think that it was a possibility to like get out to the West Coast and make that a thing for myself. With athletics, it was like what I did from the beginning. So I knew people had done it. And so for me, that was my way out. But when my parents went to Northern California, I was like, oh, they're 6 hours from the capital of like this industry.
Hmm.
And my sister and I took a few trips down there. We burned some CDs. We sent out like physical submissions to like every agency, like every like management company we could find. And I'm so embarrassed. Like I probably said the stupidest shit. Like,
That's rad though. I mean,
yeah,
you
we
get,
we
you know,
we got like 3 or 4 responses, and we went in and we had these meetings and like ended up started working with this company. I even have one from like a bigger agency, like CAA, like sent my shit back, and they're like, "Thanks for the consideration." And I was just like, looking back on it now, it's hilarious. But I just started taking it more seriously then. Like, my friends were like, "Yo, do it." I started doing covers and kind of having like a local support group, and something ended up happening with my cycling career. I don't talk about it too much. I just wasn't able to do the training I needed to do. Like, my health was kind of in a really sensitive place.
Mhm.
And I just went for it, man. When I was 19, I found a room to rent in LA, and it was like, I'm not gonna go to college just because you're supposed to go to college. I feel like you gotta have a plan, whatever you do, and that wasn't the route for me.
Mhm.
So I just came here, and that's
Oh my gosh. Well, not to pry at the cycling story, but I'm curious. You were writing songs with your sister, submitting them to agencies, but were you also at the same time were you still cycling?
yeah, it was a
Okay.
really tough, man. Like, I hate living with regrets, and that is one of my regrets. Like, anything I do, I want to do it 100%. And like my last year as a cyclist was my official first year as a professional. I signed pro at 18, or
Wow.
just like literally on my 18th birthday. I want to say like the month before that. And I knew in my head that I wanted to do music, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and athletics is something like you have to like, not physically, but you like have to want to kill people. Like when you start, like you have to know you're the shit. You have to like, that has to be your main focus. Like Muhammad Ali was my idol growing up, and like that's really the mentality you have to have, because you have hundreds of people doing the same training as you. If you want
Mm-hmm.
to separate yourself, it's like how much can you devote yourself to the craft? And in the back of my mind, it was like, I'm gonna see this year out. I'm gonna try and have a good year, and then I'm gonna do music. And at the same time, I got pretty sick. Like my immune system was just not able to handle the amount of training I was doing, which was like 25 to 30 hours of riding a week, and then other stuff was just
So
shutting
much.
down.
Yeah.
It was a really shitty time, man. And I was hurt all year, didn't finish a lot of races, and just was able to have like one decent race at the national championship. Didn't make the world selection to go race and represent the States for that. So that was depressing. And it was kind of all this perfect storm to just make a transition into music.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, we're glad you did, dude. I mean, you're doing the songs you write are insanely good. I mean, it's so talented. And I can't
appreciate
imagine, I mean, how good you are at music. I mean, to the fact that you were that great at cycling as well. It's like, to me, that's just so crazy. I mean, but it makes sense. Obviously, you put a lot of effort and time into what you do. Um, so once the cycling thing kind of ended, did you move to LA right after that, or were you still working with your sister at all? Or and are you still like writing with her at all?
Yeah, so we jam out together. She's like one of my best friends. My siblings are honestly all my best friends. I'm so lucky to have like my blood family be very close and supportive. You know,
Mm-hmm.
very thankful for that. So 2016, I like announced that I was quitting, or whatever you want to call it, retiring. I don't think you can retire at 19. That's not much of a career. um,
Well, you make it to the pro level, you can. You know.
like I'm out, it was kind of a shock to like my coach and everyone who'd been in my corner for a while. And that
Uh-huh.
was in like March. And I think by July I moved here. So I didn't know anybody here besides like the one manager at the time I was kind of talking with. And I just started playing like a lot of open mics, and any house show I could get to, I just was playing. So yeah, I still stay in touch with my sister and stuff. We still jam, but she's on her own journey right now and stuff. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's cool.
Awesome. So you obviously you're writing songs with your sister, and then you just continued writing as you were doing cycling. It was kind of not as intense, I would
Yeah,
imagine
no,
then.
I dove into it. Like it was more of a, I didn't really write. I wrote my first song with her, but I didn't really write my own song for myself until I moved here. It was a song
Oh,
called Fades Away, that I put out. I don't even think it's on major streaming platforms. It's on YouTube and stuff. It's on SoundCloud and stuff like that. And that's really when I dove in. But during like when I was in Europe and stuff, it wasn't full songs as much as I was just journaling a lot. I had like a blog for myself that I would write like story recaps. I've always loved telling stories.
hmm.
That's something I'm really passionate about. And so it kind of just transferred over. Like that's something when I moved here, I just dove completely in. Any and all studios I could get to and be a part of, like I was just there. That was like the first 2 years. It didn't matter what time it was. I had like a day job too, but I had to be up at 6, if someone invited me to the studio at 2 a.m., like I would be there. Yeah, I just
Wow.
like, I immersed myself around people who are really good at this and have been doing it for a long time, and kind of rubbed off.
That must have been hard though. I mean, like you said, you were homeschooled and now you're going to like one of the biggest cities in the whole country.
Yeah.
And you got to, how do you like even begin to meet people? Are you just trying to go out to any club, bar, venue that you can to try to like
Yeah.
what network?
I was like 19 at the time, so I don't even remember if I had a fake. I'm pretty sure yeah, I think I might have had a fake ID. But it was like it was one of those things where I'm not really a religious person anymore, but I just felt guided. Like I got so lucky in certain situations, just meeting people, and like I'd be at a coffee shop and just started talking to somebody, and they'd invite me to a show, and like that same venue that I went and watched a show 2 years later would be the reason I got like a record deal. Like it's like crazy how I think if you just imagine that things are gonna work out for you and you treat people right, things happen. I
Mhm.
will say though, it was pretty awkward. Like, it's just a different world out here, man. Like, I have conversations with my friends about this all the time. Like, people are really closed off to genuine kindness sometimes out here. Like, it's very interesting, um
Yeah.
how people.
Dude, I'm from Southern California. I know what you're saying. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
it's kind of more like, what can you do for me?
exactly. So I came out here with like, how you doing? Like, opening doors for people, and people are like, what the fuck do you want from me, bro? Why you,
Right.
and so that really made me kind of, the first 2 years out here were some of the worst years I've ever had in terms of mental health, just because I was like so confused, and I felt pressure to be somebody I wasn't too,
Hmm.
like I was kind of said earlier to you, how people have really been doing this since they're like 4 and 5 years old. That's like really intimidating, knowing that I'm just a newbie out here who wants to sing. When people hear, oh, you're that acoustic guy, like there's so many of those people. And
Hmm.
I didn't really, I just, yeah, I didn't have the accolades. I didn't have any of the history or the time and work people have put into this. And I think that was, I really suffered with identity for a couple
Hmm.
years being out here, because you really find identity in what you do. I was an athlete. And
Hmm.
when that was gone, it's like, oh, who am I besides a guy who likes music? And I've kind of come to terms with that too. I think that's a special thing, regardless of all the history of who you like to listen to, who you grew up listening to, what you know about jazz, like whatever your music knowledge is, like all it really is at the end of that is somebody who can hear something and feel moved by it. And that's really what I came to terms with for myself. Is like, look, I might not be the best at this or the best at that, but I can hear something and I can make something that makes people feel. And like,
Hmm.
I think that was the turning point of when things started to work out for me here. Was like, everybody's so worried about how they're perceived here. And like,
Yeah.
I stopped caring about that. I'm like, I've probably really turned a lot of people off the wrong way just by being myself, but that's always going to happen and you can't worry about that. But I think there
Hmm.
is a lot of really good people in the city at the end of the day, and it's just have good intentions, people will come around.
Yeah. Wow. Well, what would you say like the first kind of success moment for you was? I mean, you talked about meeting someone and then you ended up signing a record deal, but like between all of that, like obviously at what moment do you, okay, this, I'm just going to be me and then I'm going to you do this thing and then it works. Like what was the thing?
I put out this song called Fades Away, which is the first song I ever dropped. And it was at the time on like Spotify and stuff. It's not on there anymore. Um, and it just kind of, this was before like TikTok and stuff. So
Okay.
it's really interesting to see how that stuff's changed. But I'd never had a song out, and within like 10 days, it had like 100,000 plays. And I was like, what the fuck? Like,
Whoa.
it was just like, this is crazy. Like a week later, it ends up on like viral 50 lists in America, like viral in like Australia. And it was just like, looking back at it now, like I believe that when you're supposed to do something, you'll have like an instant moment, or like not an instant, just like enough to keep you going. It was just really confirmation for me, like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this. And
Right.
that started some conversations with people. My next like 10 songs completely flopped, but like it was just enough to make me keep
But the
going.
one that, yeah, the one that kicks off, it's like, okay, this is something like obviously I can do this, right? Even
Yeah.
if the next 5, 10 flop, you did it once, you could
Yeah. You
obviously
can do it again.
redo that. You could do it again.
Yeah. So that happened, and kind of just had some conversations and started playing a lot of house shows, especially in Venice. Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, literally 2 years after I moved here, I think to the date, I signed with Red Bull Records, and they've been my family since, man. They've been taking such great care of me, and they're amazing
Hmm.
over there. And just trying to, the last 2 years feels like a blur.
That's
But
crazy.
yeah.
Like, how did you meet Red Bull? And like, was that something that happened where they saw you play or heard your record, or like when did that, how that conversation begin?
Yeah, the manager I had at the time had me in some sessions with this guy called August DeWait, who's my brother, amazing friend, one of the most talented writers I know ever. He kind of took me under his wing, and we started doing songs together. And we sent some of those songs in, and the conversation began. They came out and watched me play, and yeah, that's kind of how that went. And it took a while, and it was all locked in. And yeah, they've been great, man. They support the vision. Like whatever I want to do, they get behind it. So I'm really blessed with that
That's
situation.
that's amazing. And you put out Long Game was like your first record, like full
Yeah.
record, right?
Oh yeah,
And
like full
yeah,
EP.
full EP. And we put that on 2019. It does amazing. Like, tell me about putting that out and this, you know, kind of the success and the buzz of it, and what did that lead to?
That so it's really weird. I mean, that came out in fall of 2019. I was on tour with Ash.
Mm-hmm.
Like really, that was the first time where I was like, I kind of experienced a moment of like jadedness. Like I was like, oh, I got a little bit of success. Like the demons start coming out of me. You know, like you start like feeling yourself a little bit. And it was really humbling, man, because the success of that was kind of, to be completely honest, like put on the back burner because we went into a pandemic 3 months later. So
Right. That's where I was gonna see how
I
that.
had this project come out that was streaming incredible, and I didn't really get the chance to capitalize that on the touring side. And it was
Mhm.
really, when I look at it now from a removed place, it really what I needed as a person, because 2020 I like learned so much about myself. I traveled a lot. Like I know people weren't really traveling, but I found safe ways to get places I wanted to go to. And I spent a lot of time out of California, went back to Kentucky for like 4 months. It
Mhm.
just was like reconnecting with, like I had a really successful project in terms of like what like I put stuff out, but up to that point, that was definitely the most successful thing that had happened. And I was really tired though. I feel like I didn't have any substance. And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, when you're in the studio every day, you're not writing about new experiences. You can only, write about so much, and then need to go experience new things. And it was a really great year, but at the same time, I feel like that's still what people know me by. It's 2022, and I want my next shit to be bigger than that. But you just never know how it's gonna work. And it was, yeah, it was like another moment. Like I just set up with my first song out. The rest, like after that, flopped, and then I put that out. It's gone well. I feel like it's like energy to keep going. It's like you can do this. It's just another yeah, another reason to keep going. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that must have been pretty devastating though, right? I mean, you put out this record, it does really well. You're touring it,
Yeah.
but not really getting the full opportunity to do it because this pandemic hits, and then it's like the weight of the world, or like basically the industry. Everyone's like, "What's happening? What's going to happen here?" Like at that point, are you just like, "Okay, I'm not even going to listen to the noise. I'm just going to try to move forward"? Like, how do you even pick up and move forward?
I mean, I could have done a lot better in 2020. Regardless of, the same thing happened to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like unique in the position that I was put in. There are artists that started the pandemic with no fans that are now massive because of like social media platforms. And I think that's really the main thing. It's just learning how to. This whole thing made people realize you don't really need to go places. You just need to be creative. And
Mm-hmm.
I could have spent 2020 becoming a whiz at TikTok, but I chose to travel and to reconnect with myself.
Yeah.
I think in the long run, I have more to say because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say I'm devastated just because like it's situational. I didn't really do this to myself,
Right, right, of
something
course.
that happened, and all we can do is try and find the positives with it. Of course, if I could go back in time and not have the pandemic happen, yeah, hell yeah.
Sure, sure. But I mean, you put another rad record out in 2020.
Yeah,
Do like from all that, right?
I love that music, man. Like I freaking, and mainly the one I put out in 2021 was like my baby. Like I wrote all the songs in my bedroom and traveling, and that
Oh,
record,
Bike Rides Alone?
yeah, Bike Rides
Oh,
Alone didn't do
yeah.
anything like in the streaming world, but to me, like that's what I'm most proud of. And it's just funny, like how, like I've realized during this whole time, you could make something in 5 minutes that could change your life, and you could spend months on something that just could do nothing. And that's really the big difference between, I feel, the art space and the athletic world. It's like you have no measure to what, I talk about it all the time. You have no measure to what is good,
Right.
because something was received on a bigger scale. Does that make it better? I don't know. Some of my favorite songs aren't discovered at all.
Uh-huh.
But that's been the personal journey with the artists. Like, just keep it about the music. It's so easy to to get lost in like the numbers, because that's ultimately what companies care about, you know, and that's
Right.
ultimately like that's that's how you get your budgets for the next shit. And that's how, like, if as a business, that's how you keep things moving. But I think if you make music with the intention of that, oftentimes, like often more than not, it's not going to do well. You know, it's like I tell people all the time, you're not a star because you look the best or because you play the best or because you have the most beautiful outfit. You're a star if you can stay here and keep it about the music. And like that's that's the most important thing to me. And I'm really proud of myself that I can like be in this place right now. So
I
yeah.
love that. Yeah. I mean, not that your record didn't do good. I mean, Bike Rides Alone still streamed pretty well.
Yeah.
If you look at it, I mean, but like, yeah, it's all subjective, right? I
Yeah.
mean, my favorite songs from records or off albums, certain albums are 9 out of 10, never the single or the hit or
Yeah.
whatever, which is so interesting because it's just everyone has their own opinion, but you know, the masses or the corporation, whoever put the most money behind a whatever song, then that becomes kind of the most known and recognized one. If you weren't
Yeah.
like a fan of an artist, you only knew them by what X song or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's even more acute today. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the competitive side of me is like, how do I figure this out? Like, what do you got to do differently? But I find like, I just know because I have a 17-year-old brother and a 12-year-old sister. Like, people who go to shows, those are like fans. People, those are active listeners. Those are the people that are gonna find that deep cut on the album. That's their favorite song. But there's not a lot of active listeners in 2022 because there's like a
Mhm.
new sound popping every week. You know, you don't really have active listeners. You have, I mean, I remember showing my brother an artist, and I won't say names, in like 2000. He's a basketball player. Keep in mind, he's not really much of an artist. I love the hell out of him, but he's a b-ball player.
Okay, your brother,
Yeah, my
not the
little brother.
artist.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
He, I showed him an artist in like 2017 or 2018, I want to say, and he's like, "Nah, this is trash." And then that artist ended up becoming very successful in like 2020. And I remember he came in the room one day, he's playing the song. He's like, "This shit is so hot," and I'm like, "Really?"
You're like, huh?
That's you know, it's like people listen to, you know, you. Why are Crocs huge again in 2022? Like, you know,
That blows my mind.
yeah, like people consume things when they see other people consuming things. And so I feel like that's becoming more acute in the world.
Mhm.
It's really interesting.
It really is. I mean, because you can have an artist that streams insane on Spotify or whatever, and that doesn't necessarily mean their stuff's going to translate into like hard ticket sales.
Yeah,
Or
that's part of
somebody, yeah, right. Or
it.
somebody that's doing awesome on TikTok could have X million followers, and then they put a song out and they try to push it on their TikTok, and then you go to their streaming service platform and it has like 10,000 plays. You're like, how do you have 8 million people that are, you know, following you, and then like it
Yeah.
it doesn't spill over to the other platform or whatever?
So nobody knows anything. They just do it and then something. Nobody knows anything, man. Like literally, it's just like trial and error. It's hilarious. I put a video of a piece of plastic on my TikTok the other day. Literally, there's like this stream of water, and I put plastic into it, and it made this weird noise, and I got like 4 million views. I put my music up there on there for months, get like a couple hundred views. Like nobody knows, dude. It's just all that. That's why I'm saying all that matters to me is the music. Like I'm not gonna become a dinosaur. I'm gonna do everything, make sure I'm out there, but you got to keep it about your art, because I
Uh-huh.
think at the end of the day, even if you fail, you know, like you'll at least be content knowing that you failed your way.
Hmm.
And
I
like
love
that,
that.
like I'm more and more like trying to be inspired by people that have that mindset. I mean, Kanye gets so much hate, but watching his documentary made me really inspired, because it's like, yo, this person just bet on themselves every step of the way. And regardless if that becomes a toxic thing, like, you know, that you decide your own destiny in a way.
Hmm.
That's something that nobody can take from you. So
Yeah, he gets all this hate, yet he's like still, you know, household name, one of the biggest artists ever. Like headlines, he could headline any festival, or you know, it's just it. That's what blows my mind.
yeah.
You know, it's like all these people, quote unquote, don't like him, yet you go to his like whatever page, and he's has X billion people paying attention to him at any given moment.
I didn't know all of his music. I'm gonna be honest. Like, obviously, I know some hits, but because of this documentary, I really dug in. I was just like, wow. My favorite, he keeps it about the vocals.
Oh yeah.
Like, unbelievable. Yeah, that's what I
Uh,
mean. There's so many artists I've yet to like really dive into. Like you just hits and stuff, but then you go in and you're like, whoa, like crazy.
no, I know. What is it? Graduation is one of his early ones. That one's such a great record.
Yeah,
Like it
I like
doesn't get.
College Dropout.
Oh,
That's,
College Dropout. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Or is Graduation a record too?
Graduation was huge.
Okay.
I think he won a Grammy for that too. I mean,
Yeah.
don't quote me, but
But
pretty sure.
yeah, I want to say, and then I'm gonna get all this hate, like, oh, how did you not know all these Kanye records? Okay.
Oh, I'll never like act like my dude. When you ask somebody if like they know an artist and they say yeah, and then like they don't, that's like the most awkward thing. So I would just tell you I don't know all the shit.
Or that's fun. Yeah. Or somebody's wearing a band T-shirt and then they ask what songs they. What's
Oh yeah,
what's your favorite song? I don't.
you're like
I
I
don't know.
saw this at Urban Outfitters.
Oh man, that's funny. Well, tell me about. I'm curious just about Tati, and then I want to move on to your new music. That's Travis Barker. What remixes it?
Yeah,
Were you a big Blink fan, or like? And tell me how that even started.
I mean that's something I know like the hits, but not huge Blink fan. But I mean I was obviously like that came about later on, like after I'd been here for a while, so it was like fun,
Yeah.
cool for me. My team had like mutual people at their camp, and he really liked the song, and we worked on it. He sent me a version. We had a couple phone calls, just getting it straightened out, and it was a really great collaboration. He's also like invested at this restaurant that I really love called Crossroads. It's like this vegan spot. At the time, it was like I still am really about health. Like that's like one of my biggest what's the word? Not even
Passion, not passion. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So it was just it was a really cool collaboration, and I love that song. So he gave it a whole different life. I didn't expect that it could sound like that. So yeah.
Because the song was out, right? And then he what did he notice it, or it was just like how did that? I mean, he must have noticed it, right?
Yeah, like and we did it with this guy called Young Pen. She put a sick verse on. And then yeah, like my team had mutual people at his team. We sent the song in and it happened. So
That's crazy.
made like a very interesting video for it. That was like prime COVID. Like
Oh, really?
peak like everyone in their house. So I was back in Kentucky and they're like, hey, we can't do a video, but like could you send a bunch of clips of yourself? Like I was like, okay. It's like we put together like this pretty fun video. It was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear about your new record. You have an album, right? The whole album coming out?
Yeah, my first full-length project, man. It's crazy.
Exciting, man.
Crazy.
And you put out so much music. I mean, you put a record out in 19, 20, and 21, and now you're a whole project.
Try not to. I feel like I can't. If I see artists like not put music out for 2 or 3 years, and I'm like, I would die, dude. Like, I'm sure I'll do that eventually, but I just have a lot to say. Or like,
Well, and a lot of people will hold like that whole record and release it, like sprinkle it out over the course of the next year. You put out like what, one single from the record, and it's like, okay, we're gonna do the whole thing.
Yeah, that was yeah, like the label was, they let me have that one. Like that
Okay.
was, with the album, that's something like a really collaborative thing where with producers and just making everyone feel involved. Like before I made this album, I had sessions with different producers for a month straight, 2 months straight, like just literally every day a different producer. And that was the start of the album for this like cycle. But with Bike Rides Alone, I was just in my bedroom. I just made all those songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was something where I was like, I don't want this to be like a single. Like I want people to receive this as I made it. And yeah, it was more that project they're all for me, but like that one was really for me, like.
So you recorded that all yourself then?
Yeah, with my roommate Andy Schmidt. So
no way.
Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah. So with this process, it was different. This album took like 7-8 months of writing and 9-10 months of recording. Like it literally took the entirety of last year making this album, which was the first time I've done that, just really focused on like certain amount of songs. And it's been this process, it's been so beautiful. Like you have 2 singles out already. Like I can't wait for people to hear the rest of it, because I feel like I was able to like mix the world of writing with like this just different like sonical world that I don't even know if that's a word, sonical word. I was homeschooled, so like just like putting it into the sound.
Homeschooled.
Yeah.
My son's homeschooled, so
Yeah, it's popping now, man.
dude, yeah, it is different nowadays, huh?
Yeah, it's like I think it's the I mean, I'm not gonna say any comment anything on like the educational world, but I think like if you have a vision and like my mom, man, she was the truth, bro. Like she knew what she wanted to do, and I'm props to her. Like I went to real school for 1 year. They sent me to this private school, and it wasn't my thing, man. Like to be honest, the homework she gave me was harder than the homework I got there, and like it was cool because we had field trips all the time. We would just go places and learn things like in person, and I loved it.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool. That's what was a big selling point too for my son. But I mean, it was like, I guess with not to get all political or whatever, like, I mean, COVID stopped everything, right, for school. And then it was like
Yeah,
Zooming and all this. And then it was like, well, he's already home anyway. Like, let's, anyway, I think it just
it
became
had
more of like a thing. I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, if you're home and you're already doing all the work, like, stay home. Here we go.
everything got its pros and cons for sure.
Yeah.
I think my level of education in terms of like me like learning and digesting things was like really high because we've used a lot of the things we learned, but also I would have liked to have like the regular education in terms of my parents didn't choose what I learned, or like that social thing definitely really matters, just having your group of friends. But
Sure.
and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. So I Hate You, Don't Leave Me, the new record. So like with Bike Rides Alone, those were songs that you had just written, just wrote, recorded with your roommate, and then just put it out as a record.
Right.
And then with this, did you start from scratch, or did you have songs that you were working on around that same time period that you're like, I'm not going to put this on Bike Rides Alone. Is this something maybe I'll save? Or
I have one that made it on like that, but the rest are from scratch for sure. I mean, man, I have hundreds of songs that I'm like, wonder if these will ever see the light of day. But with this one, it's like I really believe in things feeling fresh, I know it's fresh to the audience when you have a song that's 2 years old and no one's heard it. It's still fresh to the audience, but I think it's really important to keep that same. When you're excited about something and you put it out and you're still excited about it, that matters. Yeah, so we started the same from scratch, and we had this writer called Nick Bailey that I really had wanted to work with for a long time. He was actually flying in from Nashville to come work with me, and I was going through a lot personally at that time in my relationship. And like it was just so nice to like have therapy in these sessions with these guys and then just make the song. Like it really, the concept of the whole thing really came together so easily. It felt effortless. I mean, it never feels effortless when you're being as vulnerable as you can in the room, but in terms of how it happened, like it was like a conversation like this, we would have a song. And
wow.
Yeah, it was my entire year last year. The year just flew by because of it. But
I imagine that being hard to like be vulnerable like that in a room with people that you've never met. And if it's someone that has like credits to their name and they're flying out here and they're like, all right, we're gonna, Gavin, you ready to write a song?
yeah,
Tell me your, whatever. Or like what you said in the beginning. I can't even remember what you said, but you're like, okay, when I was joking, I said, we're gonna write a song. Yeah, tell me your trauma or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, is that hard? That must be so hard to do. Or
Yeah,
is it just something you learn?
I mean, that's definitely why you have sessions with other people, and like, you have to make sure you can catch a vibe, because it's really difficult to write to just be open with somebody you've never known. But it's a muscle also, when you get used to doing that out here. Something I like to do before sessions is like, you pull up, there's a coffee shop nearby, just take a walk to it, really try and just have. Oftentimes the best songs do come from conversations. Luckily with Nick, him and I had FaceTime several times before he come out here. I knew that he was just a person on like a similar wavelength that I would love to spend time with just in general. I mean, he's the raddest dude, bro. There's this restaurant down the street from the studio called Takaya, which is like this Mexican spot. And we both loved it. And so we would eat lunch there like every day. And he's just the coolest guy, bro. And then the producer, Skylar Mones, like him and I had the session together initially, and we called it Major Vibe. So both of these people I hang out with outside of music, and so it made it that much easier for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And the record's coming out. When is that? July. Okay.
Yeah, July 15th.
Okay. And you just did a tour, didn't you? Just get back from tour?
Yeah, I was opening for Tate for like the West Coast states. Tate
Mhm.
McRae. I'm sorry. I say Tate. I was just kidding.
No. And what was that? How was that? Was that your first tour back from from COVID, obviously?
Yeah, it was beautiful, man. It definitely revamped my love for it. Like with sports, you get a race every weekend, you constantly get to feel that fire, which is this is why I do it, for the the live moments, man, when it's like for 30 minutes I just forget all the stress of the world and you're just on a stage and you close your eyes and you sing and you feel connected with everybody in that room. It's something you can't recreate.
Mhm.
It made me very excited. So
I
yeah.
love it. I love it. And I can't wait to get the whole record. And I love what you're doing, man. And I appreciate you taking time to hang out with me
Yeah.
today, dude. This has been great.
So much.
I have one more quick question, even though you've kind of already answered it about 6 times throughout the interview. If you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah. Yeah, it's right. I probably did. Definitely, I mean, you can't ignore like the world of social media right now. I think don't be pressured to do things if you're not ready. I think there's really this thing about time, like, oh, I'm this old, I'm this young, like I need to go. Some of my biggest regrets are letting go of things too soon. But there's a balance to that. I think my biggest advice would be don't be afraid to let things go, but make sure you're ready to let them go.
Mhm.
There's like a balance to that because there's people who have the greatest songs ever they never let go of, and there's people who just put out shit. And I think that like quality matters. So if be as honest as you can, be true to yourself, and don't be afraid to smile and show your face. Bringing it backward.